What's next? Irony. Irony is really common in different literary works as well. It's common in speech today. When we talk with each other, a lot of people use irony. So what happens with irony? That's when there is a discrepancy of meaning. This is when one thing is stated, but the meaning is the opposite. And one thing is stated and the meaning is the opposite. In other words, a discrepancy. An example of irony. Somebody could come up to you and go, hey, did you just see that new movie that came out on Friday? And then you could go, yeah, it was really great. Now, by expression and body language, you're able to pick up on the irony there that it wasn't great, it was bad, right? I said one thing, but I meant the opposite. And you as the audience, right, you understood that implication. Yeah, you were able to understand it. Another example of irony. Say, for instance, that my wife and I are driving across town. I'm driving and I run a stop sign and I get a ticket. And then my wife turns to me and she says, great job. Yeah, that wasn't a great job. That was a really bad job of driving. That is irony. Way too often, irony is confused with sarcasm or coincidence. If you take irony and you push it to an extreme, then you get sarcasm. So in other words, if my wife was to turn to me after I ran the stop sign and got a ticket, and she was to turn to me and say, you are the best blankety blank driver that I've ever seen in my life, and you should be on NASCAR, right? She's clearly being sarcastic, right? So sarcasm has its roots in irony, but it's pushed to an extreme and it becomes sarcasm. Nor should we confuse irony with coincidence. What's coincidence? That's just when things just kind of happen. When two people bump together and they're not expected to meet, right? Then people could say, oh, wow, it's so ironic that we bumped into each other. No, that's not ironic. That's just a coincidence. I hear a lot on sports when I'm listening to sportscasters and they're trying to sound knowledgeable and they're not. And they use irony often, quite often. For example, you'll hear a sportscaster say about a quarterback whose father was also a quarterback. Wow, isn't it irony, or isn't it ironical that Jimmy is a quarterback when Jimmy's father was a quarterback? No, that's not irony. Why? Because that's not the opposite. If Jimmy is a quarterback and Jimmy's father is a quarterback, that makes perfect sense. Why? Because Jimmy grew up watching his dad play football. And then when Jimmy was growing up, chances are he said, I want to be a quarterback like my dad. So, and that's not even a coincidence. That makes perfect sense. If one person is a singer and, right, that person, he or she has a son or daughter, and the son or daughter also becomes a singer. That's not irony. That's just the cliche following in parents' footsteps. So one thing that we see as we look at these different devices, yeah, people use them incorrectly all the time. So why should we take this class and learn not only how to analyze works of literature with a literary device, right, for greater meaning and understanding, uncovering depth, but you're able to call people out. And if somebody says that, no, that's not irony, that's a coincidence. Or you can say, hey, you're not being ironic, you're being sarcastic, and I don't like it. And hey, that's not irony at all, that's just following in someone's footsteps. Boom. So irony again is when there's a discrepancy of meaning. The writer states one thing but means the opposite, and we still have some more devices to look at. So stay tuned.